Well, hello, everybody. We are here now, just getting started. Timothy, I got you. Kathy, hello. To everyone I see everybody in the chat coming in here. I'm really excited to be here with you to talk about your home run tech stack for 2025. And I'm really excited about this because I feel like it's such a great time of year to sit for a second, sit back and say, hey, what is going to happen in this next year as I move forward? What am I going to do? So I'd just like to introduce myself very quickly here. My name is Dawn Brolin. So if just those of you have maybe not met me before, but I am your designated motivator for accounting professionals. I'm very passionate about helping you all get your firm to the level of love and happiness and joy. And I know that some of us are overburdened, overworked, too many clients, too much to do, and I want to, my whole goal is that your tech stack is going to start, in, at least for some of you who are not at this point where it's so efficient and things are getting done for you, that you move in 2025 to an efficient workflow, an efficient tech stack that helps you get the job done even when you're not participating. So I am the designated motivator. I'm the founder of Team Brolin, author of the designated motivator for accounting professionals, and a new book that will be coming out in January that is called The Elevation of Empathy, Leading for the Win. As I feel like those of us that are leaders out there, there's some things we got to start focusing on. So I wrote my third book, and that will come out in January. But I'm also the CEO of a Connecticut-based accounting firm, Powerful Accounting Inc. And our firm specializes in primarily business consulting advisory work. We do their bookkeeping. We handle, payroll recommendations. We do tax returns. I kind of like doing them. I know that might be weird, but I'm big into tax. But one of my biggest passions is IRS resolution. So I like fighting with the IRS. And so that's like just one of my things. But I also love to consult with my business clients, helping them grow their business, giving them some insights into their business outside of just tax savings, right? So excited about that. Also, the president of the Accounting Cornerstone Foundation. Now, this foundation was formed with my colleagues in mind, and this organization, we raise money to send people to in person learning. So, those of you who are out there today who have never been to an in person learning conference, such as Growth Con, could be Scaling New Heights, Bridging the Gap, um, Digital CPA, Engage, uh, Tax Rep Network Summit, which I'm at right now out down in Orlando, Florida. Those types of conferences that allow people to get people to in person learning that have maybe monetary challenges or anxiety challenges. You need, maybe you need some backup, some people you might know before you go, and so we're there to support people to go to in person learning. Our 2025 applications will be going out in January for the 2025 year. So if you're somebody who's never been, I met my favorite people. Kelly Parks is a great friend of mine. We met at conferences. Nick Basha, who's also speaking in this series, is also somebody. So we find it to be so important to get people to go to in-person learning, right? So some of my best friends are made there. So we want you to find your tribe. We want you to find your people, and so we sponsor people to go, all expenses paid, and we're there as a support group. So anyway, that's just about me. For those of you who may not know, I do get pretty fired up. If you haven't noticed, I'm definitely somebody who has passion around efficiencies, passion around filling buckets of money. And Nick Bosch is my buddy. We always talk about filling buckets of money. We've moved on to dumpsters. So when we become so efficient, so effective, we're able to be so much more productive and profitable. And so Nick and I have just an ongoing, and he's in the chat here, which is super awesome. And we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. Yes, the more we make, the more we can share it. And that's what it's about, is helping other people. So I'll be all fired up about that stuff here today. So now what I want to just kind of start and level set our conversation today is some of the inefficiencies that we see through the many, many, many webinars that we give, where we're seeing inefficiencies and what are the pain points and the struggles that we're all finding as practitioners when we're working. Okay. So one of the things that I find from an inefficiency perspective is Monday meetings, I call it. And maybe not, they're just not on Mondays. Maybe they're all week. Maybe they're Monday through Friday, where firms are getting together on a Zoom to talk about who's working on what, talking sometimes about accounts receivable. I was in a firm where we would sit down on a Monday afternoon from 1 to 3. The three partners would get together and we would talk about accounts receivable for 2 hours. Print out the accounts receivable list, highlight who, like you would have your list, each partner would have their list. All right, Dawn, you're responsible for calling this client to collect this money. Why is this outstanding? And then the next person, the next person. We spent 2 hours doing that. Some people are still meeting to go over workload. Workload, I think this, I'm not saying there's a problem with meeting about workload, but what I have a problem with is when there's a firm who can't see with full transparency what's happening within the firm. So they don't have a good practice management solution with workflows, but from a practice management perspective, a dashboard that will tell you what various people are working on. What does their workload look like? Because we understand that that's an issue. Like, I don't want to give Nicole on my team any more bookkeeping clients. She's maxed out. She's not going to get any more. If we drop someone off, we'll bring someone on. She and I don't need to talk about that. We already know that that's happening. So the Monday meetings and inefficiencies around Monday meetings that typically, start out with, all right, how was everybody's weekend? That takes sometimes a half an hour. If you have a group of 10 people, we've spent a half an hour talking about how the weekend went. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think having check-ins and that kind of thing is important. But from an efficiency perspective, when we're in the thick of the season, whether, I think the season, obviously for all practitioners, whether you're bookkeeping, whether you're, just, I don't know, hanging out, or you're whatever it may be, during the season is like January to April 15th. That's when we are at our peak. I prefer not to call that busy season. How many people, and you can put this in the chat, like to call that busy season? I prefer to call that productivity season, because sitting in an office for 40 hours, anyone can do, but working in an office for 25 and getting work done and getting out, that's productivity. And so just sitting in an office for 40 hours is not being efficient. Okay. So that's one of the inefficiencies that we do see out there. And yes, Kathleen, 2 hours on AR, right? Are you crazy? No way. Right. And so we don't even have AR anymore. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So another top 5 inefficiency that we've heard is lack of transparency to client documents. So the organization of documents within your firm, where people don't know where things are. And we'll talk a little bit about folder structure. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about folder structure as we go here, but where are the documents? And so where are you putting tax returns so that it's easy for you or your client to locate it? Source documents, bank statements for a bookkeeping setup, are they consistent? So that if anyone ever needs to go take a look at, oh, I need to look at this check from, April of 2024. I want to be able to just go find that. I don't want to ask Nicole, hey, where'd you put this bank statement? No, there should be transparency and consistency with where our documents are being stored. So that's another little piece of it. The third one, this one's huge, folks. This one is huge. Yes, and please, if you have questions, we're going to put them in the Q&A, and towards the end, we got time set aside for Q&A. You can ask me, I'm going to call this an ask me anything Q&A. So anything you want to ask me, whether it is related to what I'm talking about or not, I want to answer your questions, and I want to overcome any of your objectives that you may find as we talk through this session today. So requesting documents, what a nightmare, folks. Getting the client to get us the documents, number one, is a thing, but getting them to us securely is a second thing. Security has to be top of mind. And I don't know, for those of you in here who are tax people, love to throw in the chat. Tell me if you're a tax person. I love that. Let's put that in there. What are the ways that you're getting documents? What are the ways that you're accepting those documents? Are you a tax person? Because tax people, we can't accept W-2s by email. We cannot accept W-2s by text. we need to be requesting these documents and obtaining them securely. And I'll talk a little bit about the tech stack part later, but we've got to keep that at top of mind. And that's inefficient. I better not spend any time myself calling a client for a document. I'm not doing that. That's inefficient. That's not productive. I have a person for that. I have a human being who handles all of that stuff. So that's another inefficiency that we're finding, right? So, and I understand that a lot of people, Darlene, it's a great comment. Many of the clients drop off paperwork, and and I do have people, I do have clients. They'll swing by the office, either put them in the mailbox outside, or they will. And that's all, of course, locked up and everything, very secure. Put it in there. They can't get it back out without a key. And they drop those documents off, but those documents immediately, I mean, immediately get scanned and stored into our permanent document storage, which is Smartvault. So we do that. And that's really important for us as we move forward, because we want everything within our system, right? So Tracy will always ask me, she's like, or as a matter of fact, so Tracy's just phenomenal. And I wish I could photocopy her and give one of her to each of you. Typically our clients will say, I'm dropping off my tax documents to Dawn between 2 and 4 on Tuesday, because they communicate with us, and we love that part of it. I think that's why we get a lot of referrals from our clients, because they're like, these guys are so efficient, they're on top of things. She'll say, hey, John said he was dropping off, did you get the documents yet? And I'll say, oh yeah, I picked him up this morning, or I picked him up when I got back from lunch, or whatever the case is. And she'll go, well, why aren't they in Smartvault yet? So we have that system of efficiency. So Tracy's like, wait, where are the documents, right? So we're laughing about that. And so we use Smartvault for all of our document storage. It's a tool that interacts with our tax software. We love it. That works great. So inefficiency on requesting documents. The fourth one is remote access to client documents and files. So having an actual portal that stores those documents. So requesting them is one thing, and I use Liscio for that. We're going to talk a little bit about my tech. Well, we're going to talk a lot about my tech stack. But remote access to client documents and files. So I happen to be in Florida. Actually, I've been traveling for 2 weeks now. And I've been able, and I'm working, so I'm not on vacation. So I have my MacBook with me. And if client is requesting something, maybe they're too lazy to go into Smartvault and find where the tax return is, even though it's always been in the same spot for all the years, I can very quickly and very easily go ahead and send them a link to Smartvault to the document that they're looking for. Most of the time, Tracy handles that kind of stuff. Tracy happens to be in Connecticut today, lives in Florida. So we're opposite. I'm in Florida, she's in Connecticut. We are swapping, but very easy for us to do that. But if we have an inefficiency where client needs a tax return printed and those kind of things, nightmare. Okay. So we're just not printing tax returns for people. So we want to have that remote access to those documents ourselves. We also want the client to have that remote access. Very important. And then, of course, chasing clients for information through email. Unfortunately, for the most part, that's not where the client lives. Okay. And certainly, by the way, I just want to mention this. I happen to use Smartvault for permanent document storage. If you don't have a document storage solution that you're already using, because we're going to talk about not breaking something that's not fixing something that's not broken. But Financial Sense does a great job of storing documents and having a client portal for them to access those documents. So again, it's more of the tech stack has to work for you the way it's going to work for you in the best way, the most efficient way. And chasing clients for information with email is just not a good idea. All right. So we want to think about, as we're going through our tech stack, and we go and we talk through this whole conversation, keeping some of these inefficiencies in mind as we go. Okay. So thinking about moving forward, and we're thinking about implementation of tech stack. And it's such a big conversation. People will say to me, one of the key things that people will say to me is, well, Dawn, your tech stack must be so expensive. And I'm like, well, I don't really know what the level of expensive is. My tech stack does the job I need it to do in order for me to be as productive and efficient as possible so that I can get my work done and get out of the office. Like, that's my goal. I want to do my job. I want to do it well, but I don't want it to be the primary thing that surrounds my entire life. And I'd be curious to hear, for those of you in the chat, curious to hear from you. Do you want to find yourself to be more efficient? And I think this is a great option right now for the polling question, Tosin. Thinking about tech stack, for those of you who have implemented or made a significant change in your firm in 2024. So, Tosin, if you would throw up that polling question, it's really just for my information. Did any of you make any significant changes to your tech stack in 24? Did you? Yes or no? No, I didn't have time. Yes, because I want to improve my firm. Where are you guys? This is more for my information. I'm going to vote too, because I'm going to vote yes, because I always want to improve my firm. And so, and I see it looks like a whole bunch of you, some of you, 33% as of right now are, oh, Lindsay, that is so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that. We added financial sense. Great. Implementing tech stack allowed us to double our firm and work less. That's right, Nick Basha. That's what I'm talking about. I love that, Lindsay. Thank you for that comment. That means more to me than you can imagine. So we could take that polling question down, because I'm seeing we've got about 33% of you. All right, Raquel is starting using Zapier. Awesome. We've got to find those tools that are going to help us be more efficient. 33% of you didn't have time. Now, I would argue with you a little bit, only because I'm the designated motivator, and I'm not supposed to let you be satisfied with that. I would say to you that, and I understand time is money. Time is what we don't have. Time is what we don't have. I believe if you invested, even if it was an hour a week to 2 hours a week, working on your business, not in your business, because you have to make time. There is no time. There's no time to be had, but there's time that you have to dedicate to making these improvements as you work through, as we go forward. Okay. Very, very important, especially passionate about to me, because I have in 2.5 years, I've been working with tech stacks for a very long time. I would say significantly since 2011, but it's only been over the last, since 2019. So I guess that's 6 years technically. 2000, well, maybe that's 5 years, I guess. So about over the last 5 years where I've gotten really, really dialed in to my tech stack. Why? It's because I started coaching college softball. And that takes from the last week of January until the end of May, plus September and October in the fall. And that is 3 o'clock. I would say 5 out of 7 days, you're leaving your office at 3 o'clock to go to practice, or you may be leaving at 11 o'clock in the morning to go to a game because it's an away game. And so I had to figure out how I could still run my practice, make the money I needed to make in my practice, and still be able to do that. So there's got to be, I love this part of my topic today, and I hope that it gets into your soul, that this gets into your soul. In order for you to make it a priority, to implement new technologies, to create a tech stack that is efficient, you have to find a why. You are not going to change what you're doing today unless you find a why. And I've been doing coaching, actually, I'm no longer softball coaching, because I am practice firm owner coaching to get people where they need to be. And the why has to be there. And I'm working with 2 firms right now. And one of them specifically, I said, Tom, what's your why? Tell me what your why is. And he spelled out what we all typically spell out. I want to help my clients. I want to save them taxes. I want to help them build their business. And those are extremely important whys when it comes to why you run an accounting firm. But the why that I'm looking for, and I would love for you to put your whys in the chat. That'll fire me up even more. What is your why? And I said, Tom, what is your why? Come on, man. It's bigger and better than that. And he said to me, after long discussion to try to get him there, vacations and accounting conferences. Nick, I hear you. And people, please put in the chat what your why is. Tom said to me, he said, Dawn, you know what? Last March, I have an 11-year-old who plays hockey. And last March, it was a Saturday morning, and my son came in to my office and said, hey, Dad, come on, it's time to go. We got to go to the hockey tournament. And he looked at his son and said, son, I can't go. It's tax season. I have to work. And I said, Tom, you found your why. You found your why. And who is this baseball at ECSU? Johanna, let's go. So, really, reducing stress for yourself and your staff, Raquel, perfect. Retire my husband so that we can take vacations with the kids when they're out of school. Travel, more time with my family, allow my husband to retire. That's a mantra that we're all on. I don't know why I'm doing the same thing. That's definitely important to me is to get my husband from not having to work a job, right? So more control over your time. These are the things that are going to make what I'm telling you today is going to mean nothing to you unless you find your why and then you say, you know what? A year from now, maybe 2 years from now, I can have this why. There's some short term wins you can have. And here's the key you have the why, folks. Okay. You have the why. You have to start practicing the why before you get to that result. I want my husband to be able to retire. I want to spend more time with my family. Dedicate time during tax season and say, you know what, on Tuesdays, I'm out of here at 3 because I'm going to go home, going to do whatever I want to do there. I'm going to go out to dinner with my husband, my family, whatever. You want to pet your cats. I don't care, whatever it may be. I want to go play golf. Start practicing the end result of what you could enjoy in the future now. Because just having a why is great. You've got to have that. That's foundationary. That's an automatic. But when you start to practice your why, what I'm telling you today about implementing an efficient tech stack, you will then commit time because you're going to get the taste of what it will be like when you automate and become more efficient and are profitable, still making a ton of money, but only working maybe a third of the time, maybe half the time. I don't know. You have to figure out what that is for you. For me, it's 25 hours. 25 hours a week maximum. And I feel like I can front load it. You know what? I'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and not work Thursday, Friday. If I get the stuff done I need to get done, I'm not just going to sit in my office to sit in my office. So that's what our why is for. Now, talking about implementing the tech stack, looking to scale without hiring more people. I have a firm of 3. I do not want a firm of 4, 5, 6, or 7. That's my firm plan. So this was why I did it. I needed to implement more efficiencies so that I didn't have to hire people to handle the things that the technology could handle for me. So ask client requests and asking them for certain things, automating that process so that I don't need to do that administrative work. My goal was to eliminate administrative work with the except obviously there's some that still has to be done, but I want Tracy to be able to do it in under 20 hours a week. During tax season, she works around 20, off tax season, she's around 10. That's what her goal is. That's how she wants to work. So I needed to make sure I had the tools in place for that to be a thing for Tracy. Same thing with Nicole and the same thing for me. I found my firm's inefficiencies and looked for solutions to fill those gaps. Where were we inefficient? What were we doing that we figured a technology could support for us? So for instance, at the end of the day, we said, okay, an inefficiency is chasing people by email. Simple example. So, all right, I send an email out to a client, requesting certain things from them or asking them questions, and it's been a week. It's been a week and a half. They didn't get back to me. Okay, well, now I got to send them another email. I got to find the email I originally sent. And now I need to resend it. And I'm hoping they answer this time. Super inefficient. We utilize Liscio for that, where we can set up a client, a request for something, a task or something. It's going to automatically remind them for us. We don't have to do the reminding anymore. It was an inefficiency within our firm. It's just a great example. And so that's how we handled it. If you don't use Liscio, you can use client requests within Financial Sense. So you can have Financial Sense handle all those reminders. You want to use Financial Sense at its best. So there's gaps that we found. Now, let me talk about the gap conversation first. As you go through the year, and this is something we do every year, we set a project up in Financial Sense. It's called Powerful Accounting Improvements 2025. We're going to set that one up probably the beginning of January, right? So we have a project in there and then we add tasks. So as I come up with a pain point during tax season or throughout the year, doesn't matter when, we find a pain point. It could even be with a technology. Maybe there's something the technology isn't doing that we would like it to do. Whatever the case may be, we put a task in there. And then once we get to a point where we have some time, and usually it's after tax season, we don't typically make drastic changes in February and March. We'll sit together at the end of tax season and we'll say, okay, let's go through our improvement list. And then we will, which great about financial sense is we'll go through the list and we'll assign who is going to find a solution for it. Who's going to be in charge of that solution? And we assign it to them within that project. So looking for your inefficiencies, if you've not been documenting them, you should have a project in financial sense that says your company improvements for that year. And then everybody can add tasks to that as they find things that are inefficient or painful. And you can build that list throughout the year and then throughout the year start solving for those inefficiencies. That's what we did. And it worked really, really well for us. I knew that my tech stack, I'm a tax person. I need my tax stuff to be, I need my tax workflow to be absolutely perfect. I need it to be perfect. So that was part of my analysis is what are the services we're providing, right? So we know what services are we providing. So what solutions and technology do we need to do in order to fulfill those services, right? And that makes sense. And we'll talk more about which solutions that we use at Powerful Accounting and what services or efficiencies that it solves for our firm. And that's important, right? So solutions, and for us, solutions need to be automated. I want to add a client in Liscio. I want it to flow to QBO. I want QBO to flow to Financial Sense. I want all of that to work. Ignition proposals accepted. Zapier creating the project in Financial Sense as those are accepted. Efficiency, and automated. They need to be accessible to the whole firm. So everybody needs to have access and that full transparency that everybody knows what's going on. And that's critical to us. And I needed the technology to work when I wasn't. I didn't want to have to monitor all the things that were going on. I needed things to be efficient. I needed automation tool like in Financial Sense when you have your tasks. As one task is complete, it automatically moves you to the next task and is already assigning to people, getting in their task list. That's efficiency. That is automation. And those are the things that we were looking for. This is one of the most important things I want, especially for you guys to understand. Do not fix in your tech stack what is not broken. So what's in your current tech stack that is working for you, cranking along, do not break that. Now, it's a great question in here. And I'm gonna Tracy, I'm gonna get to you on the why Liscio instead of Financial Sense. I'm gonna give you my you're gonna understand why I've chosen certain technology for the certain things we do in our practice. And so we're going to definitely get to that because I think that's a really big conversation. So as we move forward and we think about, how did I implement my tech stack and why did I implement my tech stack? It really was all around that efficiency in my firm, full transparency. So this is my playing field. And many of you, I believe, have seen this before, have seen my playing field in other webinars, or you've seen it on my website at dawnbrolin.com. You can see everything that I'm doing and how they integrate with each other, which I think is really, really powerful. So in my comment before about not fixing something that isn't broken, I have Lacert, and I've had Lacert since 2011, and Lacert works directly with Smartvault. I would not choose another document management solution other than Smartvault because it is an amazing workflow that I have when I prepare a tax return. I can literally hit print in my tax software and it's already programmed to go into Smartvault. So all of my preparer copy, file copy, client copy, government copy, all go where they belong. That's how I'm going to explain it. I just push the button, they go into the folders they're supposed to go in. And then also 8879s, I need those to be signed. So this was my workflow until 2025. So we've made a little bit of a change. It's not necessarily reflected here, but I will explain it. So we found that Smartvault and DocuSign was awesome. And it was a great process for us because prior to that, it was horrible process. I don't even really remember what we did prior to that. But that process has been great, but in DocuSign, one of the inefficiencies that we really were frustrated with is when I go ahead and I print the 8879 to SmartVault, I go to get signature, it's like connected to DocuSign. I have to manage the recipients. So I have to make sure the recipients, the taxpayer and the spouse are in there. I have to make sure the email address is right, add knowledge-based authentication, drag and drop the signatures and the dates. That doesn't sound like a lot. It was a really efficient from what we were doing previously. Like put it in Smartvault, have them print it out, sign it, and then share it, and then like upload another screenshot. So instead of that, so this has been great. It was a great improvement. But as we continued through, I'm like, this is so frustrating and annoying that I have to go in and edit the recipient. So this year, Liscio has introduced their tax delivery process. So, and we'll again, I'll get more into that stuff later, but we now have a way where we can dump the tax return into Liscio. It automatically puts the signatures where they belong and sends it out, reminds them if they haven't signed it. It actually delivers a copy of the tax return along with the 8879 very securely for them to sign off on. And so we don't have to do the drag and drop of the stuff anymore. We just literally drop one PDF into Liscio and it's going to send that information over to the clients, which is really awesome. And I'll get more into the details of those types of things in a minute. So as we think about this workflow and the way I have my playing field, you'll see the arrows, how they interact with each other. So Lacert goes into Smartvault. It doesn't go the opposite way. It's just Lacert to Smartvault. So it's a one-way intersection. Then Smartvault can go to DocuSign for signatures if that's what you choose to do. But what happens is when the client signs it, the 8879 goes back into Lacert and you never touch it. So that was a really efficient way for us to do it. So the arrows are going to tell you which way the platforms go. Okay. And so you'll notice that on my tech stack, the various things that I work on, and somebody had asked something about engagements and those kind of things. We use Ignition for that. We use Ignition for our engagement letters and getting paid. We get paid up front. If you're a tax preparer on here, and a bunch of you put in here that you're tax preparer, you're doing taxes. I changed inefficient. Want to talk about an inefficiency we had? I would send engagement letters and they would get their quote with the engagement in Ignition. And but I wouldn't charge them right away. They would just have to add their payment information. So when I finished a tax return, I would have to manually go back into Ignition and go and process the payment on the tax return. Now, I'm a human being and I forget to do that stuff. I forget that, okay, I filed the return or I'm going to go make the payment. And it was extremely inefficient. And so Tracy would always have to do a reconciliation of, okay, these clients are done and she's very good and meticulous at it, but you didn't process these 3 payments for these 3 clients. Now you need to go process them. And it could have been a month later, which doesn't make me look that good. So we decided we're going to move to a prepay model in 2024. We're like, let's just get rid of accounts receivable entirely. We're not doing accounts receivable anymore. We don't touch accounts receivable. Our cash flow is consistent. Our cash flow is phenomenal because we made a change in our inefficient process of how we were getting paid by our clients. It's another simple example as we continue to improve what we're doing. So you can see here that as we look through the different applications that I'm using and how the workflow works. I think you guys kind of all understand that part, but these technologies support the services that we're providing to clients as well. So we know that we promote ADP for payroll because to me, I don't want to be in charge of payroll. I don't want to resolve payroll issues. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. I love their rev share program. I'm all about it. But I also love the efficiency of, we used to track clients in another practice management. We would have done it in Financial Sense if we hadn't made a change. So a tip to you, if you allow your clients to be in whatever payroll service they want to be in, you don't dictate what that looks like. You can add a custom field in Financial Sense so that you know where their payroll lives. So if you don't have that now, that's just a great tip when it comes to Financial Sense and being able to add a new custom field so you know, because here's the thing, folks, I don't necessarily memorize all the things that I'm doing within Financial Sense, right? Or my clients. I don't know. Okay, this person's on Gusto. I don't know. I don't remember that. For us, we didn't want to have that confusion. Your bookkeepers, let's say you have a bunch of bookkeepers, and maybe they're cross training and stuff like that. They don't know where the payroll is. I decided I want to log into one ADP account connect and have all of my clients' payroll in there because that supported my process around RC reports. You see that in the lower left corner, which by the way, everyone should be doing reasonable compensation analysis. You don't need to be a CPA. You don't need to be an EA. You don't need all this crazy training. That's the objections I see online. I'm like, what are you thinking? It's not a compliance thing where you're signing off on it. You're just working through a reasonable comp report. So how ADP supports me in an efficient way is when I'm done with a reasonable compensation report, I log into ADP, I go into the shareholders wage account, I go into their profile in ADP, and I change their salary to what the reasonable compensation should be. Now I've fully covered myself, but I've done it in clicks of a button. I'm not relying and saying, okay, now I got to send an email to the bookkeeper to say, hey, can you go in and change, Larry's salary to $123,200? That's not efficient to me. I just want to go in and get it done and handle that. So again, this how the way things can support us. We're doing FP&A training with our clients. We're going through looking at forecasting and where you break even and where you run out of cash, all those kind of things. And we use Jirav for that. That works with ADP from a workforce and QBO connected to QBO. So I think they connect to Xero and many other things. But in order for me to deliver the best product and the best service to my clients, I need these tools in order to be efficient. Bookkeep is another efficient tool for us. Bookkeep allows us to have all of our clients that are e-commerce clients on PayPal, all these things. It posts all those revenues for us while we're sleeping. We're not posting revenue for those clients. So we don't need to even worry about that. And it's posting it accurately. So it's efficient in that it's a daily basis. These sales are being posted, and it's efficient that it notifies us if there's an issue. So we want to talk about efficiencies. Do you have these types of things where they're working for you while you're not there? I've been traveling for 2 weeks. If Nicole needs to know what type of things are on my plate for a due date, she just goes into Financial Sense and sorts my tasks by due date for me. And she can go, hey, Dawn, I can grab this one from you. Let me just assign this project to me. I know you're traveling. And sometimes we do that before I leave for a trip. And she'll say, well, let's look at what your tasks are. And let's take a look at your due dates. Maybe there's a couple things I can pull off your plate so you don't have to do them while you're traveling. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. So I think, I hope that kind of helps you see kind of what I've in the thought process. And so some of the things too that I find not just in the technologies will be the solution, but the planning that comes behind what happens in your workflow is obviously super important. So sometimes just having a napkin or a piece of paper or a whiteboard, I'm big into whiteboards, to write out what do these workflows look like, and then where do we insert technology to solve the workflows. That's kind of the process that we go through. So I gave you a few different examples of how we think through the process. And so for instance, our administrative tax prep workflow, new clients. So do you have written out what happens when a new client calls? What does that look like for you? My goal is that I don't touch the new client as much until they're actually clients. Like, these are potential. They're not even actually clients yet, which by the way, just because somebody calls your office doesn't mean they're going to be a client. Imagine that. Think about that process. Because there's a great opportunity to weed out clients that are not your ideal client profile during the onboarding or the initial potential process. So this is our process. A client will call the office. Tracy has a conversation with that client. She takes her notes, does all her things. Then she sets the client up in Smartvault under they're not in the permanent section yet. They're not a client yet. They're in the potential tax client section. This also can go along for bookkeeping. They're in a separate client section. Upload your tax returns, blah, blah, blah. Here you go. This is the portal that you'd be using normally. They get introduced to the first software. And that's how we set that part up, because they're not clients yet. We're not putting them in our system yet. Then what will happen is Tracy will book, she puts 15 minutes just to give me leeway, 15 minutes in my calendar so that I can look at, and she puts a link to Smartvault where the stuff is all uploaded. So she talks to the people, and until there's a calendar appointment telling me to send a quote, I really don't care. I'm working on my stuff. I'm not concerned about that. So she puts this appointment in, a link to the Smartvault folder, because she doesn't put the quote. I can't quote anything if I don't see anything. So she'll do that. Easy for me in my calendar to just click it. Smartvault opens. I got everything I need there to review. Then I open up Ignition and I have the client. She's got the client in Ignition, of course. So I go ahead and I create a quote and I send it. And I've not even interacted with the client yet. I only know what I know at that point, which is good enough for me to send a quote. Because unless they're going to agree and pay me, I'm not interested in having another conversation yet. Client will accept the quote. On we go. Then Tracy will move on. She'll go into Liscio. And now that they've accepted it, now they can come into the system. Now they're invited. They get into Liscio, which again, QBO, then it adds to financial sense. All the things are happening with just one entry. We love that. Tracy will send the organizer through Liscio so that we can, get them set up. Once the organizer comes back, then the admin will add, she's added them to Liscio already, but she adds them to Smartvault. I don't talk about an inefficiency. Why am I creating a new client in Liscert? Tracy's capable of entering their names, their social security numbers, their dates of birth, their addresses, all the basic stuff. And now when I'm ready to go, I'm just going in there and preparing the tax return, right? Tracy will then import the client. It's like there's a sync that you pull from Liscert to set the folder up in Smartvault. So Tracy does that. And then we start collecting documents. And then the process goes on from there. But you've got to stop for a minute and write the process out before you can solve the technology. So once you've got the process mapped out, now you insert the technology where it makes sense. In this example, we've got Smartvault, we've got Ignition, we've got Liscio, and we've got Liscert. Those are the things we first start up. Automatically, QBO is involved. Automatically, Financial Sense is involved. Okay. And that's when then Tracy will go into Financial Sense and start making notes. The work gets set up. All those things start happening. And there we go. And now we're off and running. So it's just a great example of how we continue forward. Now, here's what happens. Once you write out that process, now you can set up a new client onboarding proposal process as a project template in Financial Sense. So when Tracy has a new prospect, because somebody had asked earlier, do you use Liscio for prospecting? No, that information will go into Financial Sense. Now, obviously, if it goes into Financial Sense and they don't become a client, they just get archived. It's simple, no big deal. But we set the project up to onboard them so we don't miss any steps. So Tracy knows when I'm done with the proposal and the proposal's done and they've accepted it, then she knows she's going to move on now to the engagement. What's next? Then she sends out the organizer, does all that. Now we move into a different project, was the actual tax return. So this is just an example of how we've set up our system and how we make it work. So this one is and again, I'm just giving you some examples. What does our tax prep workflow look like? And after the tax return is completed. So we've got the return completed, so on, which we do have project for the actual tax return. I print the return to Smartvault. And so now if you're not have a system, you're like, wait, the tax return's done. Now what do I do? Well, where are you printing the tax return to? And how easy and efficient is it where you're printing it? We now need to send communications, the results through Liscio. So we print the return to Smartvault. We drag and drop that return into Liscio as a tax delivery service. Then the 8879s are going to go. I don't know, this slide's incorrect because we don't print the 8879s to Smartvault anymore because they go through Liscio. Invoices go, signature comes back. We update the status of the return. The payment's already processed and our returns are filed. So we're all done. That's just, again, another example of how you need to clearly outline and define exactly what you're doing. And then I know there's some of you on this call that are bookkeepers. You're not even doing tax, Brolin. So I'm like, you're boring to me because you're not even telling me how does this work? How does all this process work for me as a bookkeeper? Well, again, outline your process. A client contacts your office. What happens? The admin sets the client up in Smartvault also so maybe we can get a copy of the prior year tax returns, because as bookkeepers, I would expect you to be able to look at the prior year tax return and look at the books and be able to say, do the books match the prior year tax return? That's like step one, in my opinion. So that's what we want to do. We want to get access to the book. So we want to see the prior year return. We want to see what we're working with here, right? How accurate are the books compared to the return? That's going to help you determine how much of a nightmare you're getting yourself involved into. So the admin will maybe book the 30 minutes on your calendar. So you can evaluate the books, evaluate the return, get your hands wrapped around everything. Maybe you have a discussion between the tax and the bookkeeper if there's that scenario where you're a tax practice with a bookkeeper, or if you're the bookkeeper, you maybe want to have a conversation with the tax preparer if you don't even know who they are. What a great marketing opportunity to get in touch with that preparer. The quote sent, acceptance, checklist and organizer returned, um, everything goes, time for documents. So again, it's all about the defining of those things. So how does it all work together? I want to make these three separations of what I use these three particular tools. Liscio. For me, it's all about communications with clients. It has the ability to do SMS texting. It has full transparency to communications with everyone in the firm so they can see any text messages, any requests or tasks that have been assigned. Anything that needs to require a signature will go through the Liscio and all of that happens. We don't chase for documents, it automatically reminds them. We really focus on it being really the communication hub of our firm with our clients. So they're not texting us separately. So those of you giving out your cell phone number, what a nightmare. I'm sure that that's not much fun because I know it isn't for me. And I used to do that. And now with Liscio, I don't have that. I have everything where I want it right within the tool. So that's what Liscio is and where we work there. Smartvault is a permanent document storage. Whether people email you things and they come in through Financial Sense, whether they send you things through Liscio, doesn't matter. Wherever they're all coming in from, I find there needs to be one source of truth. And for us, it's Smartvault. Everything lives in Smartvault permanently. We find that that's got full transparency across the firm. The client always has access to it. Again, if you're using Financial Sense for your portal, don't break don't break something that's good to go. I'm just telling you how for me, Smartvault is, I may get stuff from Financial Sense documents. I may get documents from Liscio. We won't accept them through email, but if we get them in those various aspects, I still want them in one permanent place because all of my tax stuff lives in Smartvault. And so everything else should join it, including bookkeeping. We have a folder that's all the bookkeeping stuff. So that's what Smartvault's for. And so as we think about Financial Sense for us, it's the workflow, it's the driving force of our firm. Without getting work done, we can't get paid. And so without Financial Sense, we are lost. We don't have any transparency. People are using Excel worksheets. They're using, I don't even know, crazy things to track their work. The dashboard functionality in Financial Sense, where you can filter out what you're looking at, the ability to use tags to say, like, I go into the office, I sit down, I open Financial Sense, and I have my primary dashboard that says tax return ready to start. That's during tax season what I care about. The rest of the year, I'll live through more of my task list. But during tax season, I care about the projects that are tax returns, period. Everyone's on task. I can see what Nicole's doing. I have the ability to put links within there for resources. So I live in Financial Sense, and if I want to open up Smartvault for example, I open it through Financial Sense. Everything runs out of I need to log into ADP because I'm doing a reasonable comp analysis. That link to ADP Accountant Connect is in Financial Sense. So it's the primary focus and the primary hub of everything we do in our firm. And so we love that. Nicole does like to use the client reminders for some of the monthly bookkeeping recurring things. So she'll utilize that as she sees fit. But we find that Financial Sense, without it, we can't track anything. I encourage you to take a strategic tech stack selection checklist, which we've provided. Think about the apps you currently have. Think about the apps you need versus what you have. So like I said, defining those workflows and then filling in to those workflows, the technology to make you as efficient as possible. Do your apps integrate? Are you disconnected? You need to reevaluate what you're doing. If you're utilizing technology that you have to enter data into multiple platforms, now we've got junky data. What if you misspell one thing? You put a phone number in one place and not in the other. It's ugly. We want to have things all connected. What pain points do you have in your current apps? List those out. And what apps do you think are missing? And those are the things I want you to be thinking about. Okay. And so as we move on, I believe that every firm has a need to fill. And what I call, these are like the playing field, like first base, second base, third base. Without a first baseman, nobody's catching the ball at first base. They're always going to get on base, right? That doesn't make sense. So in our firms, we have to have the same thing. We need to have an accounting software because we're accountants. I know that won't be a surprise to you. Having a hosting solution so that if you are a desktop user, I am on my Mac, I can work from anywhere if I choose to, right? Maybe we want engagement software, client communication tools. You have to have practice management, reasonable compensation software. All of these positions, these are things you need within your firm, and there may be more depending on what services you provide. So we do reasonable comp, so we need a reasonable comp software, and so you may not, but I think everybody should be doing that, but that's a whole nother webinar. So as we move on here, as I see, you want to have the right players in place for doing those things. And this is again a picture of our playing field, so you can move on. I know we're going to have some questions here, Tosin. I know we only have about 7 minutes left. What practice management software I'm using is Financial Sense. So that's what we're using currently. And so, Tosin, if you want to rip off some of the questions here, I'm happy to answer them. I know there's some in the Q&A as well that I can address. So here we go. How to get clients to use tools you're using. Stop sending info via text or Facebook. Okay, Chris, great question. So we are very adamant, and that's why I think an admin person is critical, even if they're part-time. So if they're sending information via text, which happens, right? We will proactively call that client. Now we work with around 225 clients. We don't have thousands of clients. In that case, maybe I would have a full-time admin, but we have a part-time admin. She will call the client and explain to them the issues with security around texting, sending things through Facebook, and that's one of the things, Chris, we need to streamline where communications happen. And so we're very adamant in the onboarding process and even during transition to a new solution. So if you're not in something like Liscio, which does have SMS texting with a phone number that's not yours, we really encourage them and reiterate to them, we won't accept that information via text. You're going to have to do it through here. So that's one of our approaches. Interested in options to handle MFA from multiple programs. I really don't want employees to do it on their phones. Is there another option? Yes, Kathy. You could use your SMS text code through Liscio. That's one option. I know historically we use Ring Central for our phone. And we have our own phone numbers through Ring Central. People can text SMS through their Ring Central. So there are apps that you can use for that. You can also set up a general email address within your firm that just says, maybe it's 2FA at your powerfulaccounting.com, for example. And then all 2FAs would go into that one place and not on their personal cell phone. So hopefully that helps you with that question. So let's think. Do you use Liscio and Gruntworks? Yes, I do. So I use Liscio that will gather, and we're using it this year, I should say. Like we hadn't used it in the past for gathering documents, but now with the new tax organizer, and it actually collects all the documents at the same time. It's going to take those documents, put them in order. And it gives me one PDF with the documents. I drag and drop that into Gruntworks, populate it, and import it into Lacert. And it's going to eliminate me from ever entering a W-2, a 1099, or any of that stuff ever again. So the answer is yes, that's what I'm using. How do these tools replace the things I'm already using, paying for, like QuickBooks, Outlook, etc.? So Nicole, the best way to look at it is to take the time, invest the time to sit down and go through the tech stack, go through what you're solving for. Maybe you want to do the pricing. What does it cost you for each of those solutions? Evaluate and think, okay, I'm using Outlook, I'm using QuickBooks. Obviously, depending on the tools that you need, depending on the services that you're providing. But I think, Nicole, you're going to need to map that out with that tech stack checklist and see is this working well for you? Is it efficient enough? And if not, maybe that's where you need to start changing and maybe moving in a different direction. Schedule C clients. Does your firm require that you handle the bookkeeping, or do you accept bookkeeping provided by the client? Jasmine, great question. So if the client, so we do have clients that do their own books. One in particular, my guy named Todd. Todd is very good at his books. So we'll let Todd do his books. We oversee it. And if he has questions, we answer them. So we'll do that. If we have a client, which one in particular that is just coming on, she does not do a good job with her books. So we've required, if she's going to come to Powerful Accounting, we have to be doing her bookkeeping because it's not going to work. It's just not happening. So we do let the clients handle the bookkeeping, but we do require oversight, Jasmine. So they have to let us oversee, whether it's on a monthly or a quarterly basis, a minimum of a quarterly basis, to monitor the books and making sure things are tied out and that things are working well. So hopefully that helps. Um, and I think boundaries are really important, Jasmine, because that's a great question. Why would you, you may be a firm that says, hey, we only, and I have friends that we only do tax returns for people we do the books for. We don't, no exceptions. Boundary. That's what that firm determined, that that's how they wanted to operate. And there's nothing wrong with that. Um, do I have a suggestion as to what to say to clients to change to prepay for tax returns? Yes, Ariane. I do have a video for that. I'm happy to share that if you remind me, because I'll forget. I know we only have 2 minutes left, but so what I did is it Arlene, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. So I use Ignition, and what I did was I put a video together for them, and I started prepay at the beginning of 2024. Okay. And I said, okay, hey, folks, we're moving to a new model. And instead of us worrying about accounts receivable and when to process your payment and do all of that, we're going to require payment up front. But what I'm going to do for you for this first year is I'm not going to increase your price as a compromise to you, because I'm making a change the way I want to operate my practice. This is about my practice. That's how I want to run it. And I have to tell you, if I lost 2 clients, I would be a lot. People were all about it. They had skin in the game. My extensions went in 23. I had 90 extensions. In 24, I had 30. We are moving towards a no extension season, with the exception of K1s we're waiting for, but all the rest of the returns will be done. So I know this was a lot. Um, if you don't have financial sense already, go get it and start now. This is no better time than literally today to get going. And who of you are committed? Not, and I'm not talking just about financial sense. I'm talking about your tech stack. Who is committed to actually improving their tech stack in 2025? Yes, I am. Absolutely not. Where are you at? It's okay if you say absolutely not. I get it. Like, I totally get it. But at the same time, I don't, because I feel like if you want to be efficient, you want to only work 25 hours a week, you want to be profitable, you want to make money because money will help other people. Come on, folks. And the absolutely nots, I get it. If maybe, and you know what, maybe those absolutely nots have a perfect firm. And that's awesome. That's what I'm always striving for. So if there's anything that I can do for you as we move forward, I have started coaching firms. I'm going to start in 2025 it's going to be called practice pods for those of you who need to get over the finish line. Hey, I signed up for Financial Sense, but I really could use some motivation. I could use some encouragement. I could use some support and moving forward with it. I'm going to start doing that because people ask me every webinar, every conference that I'm at, can you please help me? And so finally, Dawn Brolin is going to stop coaching softball and start coaching accounting firms so that they can have the absolute best experience in their firm so that their lives get better. And I'm committed to you to help you do that in 2025. So thank you guys so much for being here today. I can't wait for therapy next week. You got to make sure you join on Tuesday with Kelly Parks because she is a guru. I bow down to Kelly Parks and Nick Basha. And I will tell you, we will have a great therapy session next Thursday. Don't miss it. Thank you all again.